Sorry. So, well, it's great to see you, and
Nice to see you too.
And you're in Poland now, right? Gdansk.
Yes, in Gdansk, near Gdansk actually. It's a village called Starogard Gdański, which is 50 kilometers from in south of Gdansk, so near the Baltic Sea.
You speak Polish?
No, a few words maybe, but
oh, it sounded pretty good. I guess French and English and what, a little German, right? Is that right?
Not German, no, just French and English. I mean, I know a few words in Japanese also, but you know.
That's right, of course.
Yes.
Of course. Yes. So that's right, because we share a common, not
Asian roots.
Asian roots.
Yes. It's your father, right?
It's my father. Yeah.
It's your father.
And on you, it's your
mother.
That's right.
Yeah.
You know, talking about parents, I've been going through some old letters that I found, well, just over the last few weeks, and I've been looking through these old letters from my father to my mother, and some of the responses from my mother to my father, and they're in their early 20s. I guess they met my father was in graduate school, my mother was in college. My father was writing her from Europe. And it's so interesting because there are these incredibly passionate letters, even a little erotic, I guess.
Well, that's kind of amazing what the past can tell also. I mean, if you think about your past, everyone can write a book about the family history of their history, and that's quite amazing because each family has a fascinating history in a way. Yeah. It's quite amazing. And
this is
just
interesting because I mean, fascinating, yes, but also to see my parents in, I don't know, you know, they're my parents. I mean, you know, for better or for worse, you know, difficult, not difficult, but to see them, you know, looking back now from my age, to see them at the same age as students that I have, and to see this, you know, these hot-blooded letters and shy responses, it's incredibly moving actually, because I'm seeing them as human beings and not as my parents.
Yes. Yes, we all have a past in a way. I mean, we all have been young and, you know, living life. I mean, there's so many things happening in life, and we don't know even a quarter of what they've lived already. I mean, They don't tell you everything, and it's quite fascinating in a way.
Well, it's interesting because we were talking just before this started, right, about astrophysics, and I was mentioning how years ago when I'd gone on this dinosaur dig in high school, and of course then you're digging up fossils which are 2 million years old, and they were Jurassic mammals, I believe. I think that's around. No, that would be much more than 2 million. That would be what, 140 million or something like that.
That's probably the case, yeah.
But then looking through this telescope that one of my colleagues had, and seeing the rings of Saturn, and this idea that you've got this telescope that you're looking through to the past, and not only just how amazing and awe-inspiring that was, because it was small, but you very distinctly saw this white silhouette with these rings around it. But then, in a sense, I guess I'm realizing now this seeing these letters from my parents felt, in a way, it felt kind of the same, because it wasn't someone telling you a story, but it was seeing the actual letter in my father's handwriting, and then my mother's response, as you know, holding it in my hand, as real as it was back in 1955 or 1960. It's a strange.
It's bringing actually, yeah, it's bringing back the past. I mean, it's when you're reading it, it's like you become your father in a way. I mean, suddenly you're living their story and their emotions and everything. It's quite nice. It's quite amazing actually to come back to, you know, to some letters and memories and even pictures. It's incredible sometimes to come back to those memories, and even if it's not your memories, you know, it's like suddenly you're in it. It's like, you know, when you're reading a book, you know, it's like also you're part of the story, and it feels like you're the character, you know, right? Also.
Right. Well, in fact, yeah. I mean, in terms of time and reading a book, I'm reading for the first time Proust.
Oh, nice.
And I just was reading this passage how he was reading a book and the clock would strike every hour, and it was instant. He would hear the clock strike, and then the clock would just strike again suddenly, or sometimes it would strike several times more than he expected, in the sense that time had just you know, he was so immersed in this book that time stops. Right?
Well, time is emotion also, in a way. Time is emotion, in a sense that whatever you're feeling, then you're feeling actually time differently. It's quite fascinating also to think about when you're having a great time. Time flies in a sense, and then sometimes when you're remembering things, there's another conception of time also, and some moments can be photographed in a way, and they're immortal. You know, it's like it's staying, like time is still, and then you're just in the moment. It feels great.
I think the slowest time has ever gone for me twice, two occasions. One is when I got a root canal, dental work, and then there, you know, the guy's there. He's up to his elbows in my mouth, and you know, his foot's on my chest, you know, this kind of thing. And I glance over, you know, like this. I glance over at the clock, and you know, and then I glance again after what felt like 20 minutes, and it had been, you know, 1 minute,
2 minutes.
Yeah. So, but the other time was I was almost in a serious kind of motorcycle accident. I wasn't, but I had a malfunction while I was driving on the highway, and I didn't crash, but I thought I was going to crash, and it was the whole thing probably lasted about maybe 20 seconds till it happened, until I was able to pull over. But every one of those 20 seconds, you know, I remember as like an hour, because you know, they taught you all your senses, you know, your antenna up, and your body's full of adrenaline, and you're struggling to maintain control, and everything, you know, they say, you know, time seems to slow.
Very slow sometimes, yes. Crazy. But when you think you're dying also, I guess time is suddenly like eternity or something. When you feel in danger, when you feel that you might die also, it might be, something. But also the first kiss also can be like an eternity. It could be, so.
But of course, then playing music, you know, you and I have both been in concerts when you know, you start a concert, and then all of a sudden the concert's over, and it's just that. It's
felt
amazing.
Like nothing. Yes,
felt like nothing.
It's quite incredible. Yeah, it depends also on the piece, because I remembered once I played, you know, the Messiaen quartet, and there's this suddenly this movement for cello and piano, which is amazingly slow. It's like, maybe the pulse is like 44 or something. Yes, and it's the semi-quaver is actually 44 or something. And in a way, it's like meditation. Like, you have to, in a way, you can't really play below your heartbeat, in a sense. It's quite difficult in a way. So in this piece, you have to calm down and be in a state that everything is floating in a way, and it's endless. It feels endless also. So it depends on the work also. And when we're sharing
to those people who are listening, this is the Quartet for the End of Time, written by Olivier Messiaen. And indeed, for the end of time, right?
Yes. Yes, for the end of time.
I wrote a post about it not too long ago that it took me a long time before I appreciated the piece, because I knew I should love this piece because I had so many friends and colleagues and teachers who could not stop singing the praises about it. But I would go to concerts and I would listen, and it would be like, oh my God, this is so boring.
It can be very boring. It can be. Well, to be honest, I don't really appreciate every movement. I mean, there's some movements which can sound even old-fashioned in a way right now.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a few moments like this solo clarinet piece. I mean, doesn't work anymore in a way. I don't know. There's something about the language. I think it's the intermed. I think, which is kind of, for me, sound dull a bit. But when you come to the solo clarinet piece and the duet also for violin and piano at the end.
Oh, at the end.
Also very, very moving. And the piece, obviously, also the movement for cello and piano, it's quite amazing. And yeah, it's a fascinating language, but Messiaen has always been quite complex. It's really difficult to approach it for a lot of people. I mean, even for me, I had the same feeling as you. You know, sometimes when you hear his music, it's just, oh my God, this, and you feel that it's so smart, and in the same time, it's just, okay, I don't understand, where is it going, and so on. But his work about studying the birds sing songs, you know, it's quite fascinating, really. Well, the way he uses it in the piano pieces. Yeah.
I mean, with that piece, I guess two things helped me. I mean, I read a book on it and analysis of the movements, but I listened over and over and over and over. And I remember actually the specific spot on the highway. I had a very long drive, and I just had it basically on an endless loop. Because, you know, some music, classical music in particular, right? Sometimes you need time. You just need time with it to get it in your ear. And
well, that's the problem actually with art in a way, because people don't understand that you have to stop in a way to appreciate art. You have to give your time to the moment, which is in our society, it's just unbelievably impossible. And the thing is that you can even see that, I think, through music history, because at Beethoven's time, you know, you had concerts lasting like 6 hours or something, which was fine. And but also it's I guess it's in relation to society's approach to time, because at that time, you know, traveling took days, and so people tend to, you know, conceive time in a different way. So it was okay actually to have a very long concert. And even you can see that in modern music, I mean, in pop music and everything, the songs are like reducing time and more. And now it's like 3 minutes or 4 minutes only. So it's like the way we approach time in society, I guess by also, you know, transportation and our way to build our days and so on. It's related in deep relationship about your appreciation of time, which is quite, it's so that's actually my opinion. You know, it's quite hard for people to nowadays to appreciate, for most people to appreciate, you know, Beethoven's time or Mahler's time or even Mozart's time. You know, they're fascinated maybe for 3 minutes, and then, you know, it's boring. And yeah, I don't know.
Well, there's this emphasis on speed, right? In modern culture, speed is good. Convenience, and that's what convenience is about. Oh, why, you know, if I can just have this delivered instead of have to go out and just buy this instant made. Well, why should I do it myself? And you're a little crazy if you're like, oh, you want to sit and peel all your little garlics? Why don't you just buy peeled garlic, right?
That's the thing. But people, they don't know actually what they're losing not taking time, because time is also reflection. And well, we can obviously see that people are not thinking anymore nowadays. It's quite the golden age of stupidity. And I think it's because we don't take time anymore. Common sense is in deep relationship with time, I guess. It's really difficult, and it's quite painful actually to see this happening right now. It's really painful.
Yeah. Well, I go on these. Most of my friends know, because I talk about it a lot, right? I go on these news moratoriums from time to time, because I just find reading the paper. I mean, it's important to be informed. It's very important to be informed as a citizen, but at the same time, it can be deeply discouraging, and sometimes I just need a break, and I need to take a week and just I'm not, for this week, I'm just not going to look at any news. And I find it's quite nice, actually.
It's very nice. I actually did the same. I stopped reading the news because it creates so much anxiety right now. And because they have to also, kind of Hollywood spirit, the worst thing ever happened today in whatever country, or this politician said this horrible thing, and everything is so negative. And obviously there's a lot of negativity in the world right now, but there's also a lot of positive things, and pretty sure there's a lot of people actually who deeply want to change things. If we just communicate more together, and we take time to appreciate also what everyone has to say about their way of thinking life and society. And I don't know, for me, just art is a way of teaching us in a deep way that we have to take time. Apparently it takes 20 minutes anyway to focus on something, apparently. And apparently I've learned that if you're writing something or practicing something or working on something, it takes 20 minutes to really be inside your work or the book you're reading or something. So it takes time anyway. Right. If you want to go deeper anyway, it takes time.
Well, it's looping back to the Quartet for the End of Time by Messiaen. Yes. The point at which the entire piece clicked for me, made sense, was I'd been listening to it again over and over and over. And at the very end of the last movement with violin piano, he pulls out the audience. He's waiting, and the tension builds up. And then there's this resolution of the chord. Finally, and you've been waiting minutes for this to happen. And it sounds crazy, but when I finally got it, there was this huge sense of relief and satisfaction and joy. Yeah. And everything, all the, 6 movements or 7 movements or something?
I think, yes, 6 movements. Something maybe. Like that, yes. Yeah.
And suddenly, it was like the whole piece in that instant suddenly made sense to me. And it was almost like I had to listen to all 6 movements and, slow movements and, just drawn out movements to earn that satisfaction of that resolution at the end. And then I was like, okay, now I understand it.
Yeah. No. Well, especially for that last movement, it's extremely sensual in a way. I mean, he's talking about Jesus and God and his spirituality and during the whole piece, through the whole piece. But at the end, it's kind of in a way also the relationship of time with the piece is very romantic gesture in a way, because he creates tension by dilating time, and it reminds me even like Nietzsche's philosophy in a way, like to dilation of time, and the way that he's stretching the time during this whole movement is incredibly creating a lot of tension, and it's, for me it's a very romantic gesture in a more modern piece. But and also the language, I mean the harmonic language is suddenly very sensual, and it's kind of a release and somehow back to humanity in a way. He was exploring his whole spirituality through the whole movements of the piece, and then suddenly at the end, it's just a human being thanking maybe this spiritual world, and it's really romantic in a way.
Well, it's so interesting you say that, because I guess I hadn't thought of it like that, but it makes so much sense, because at the one hand it is a profoundly spiritual piece, but it also is it's so physical, and his relationship from the little I've read, to God was, it wasn't kind of a very stuffy, square kind of interaction, but sensuous, like you say, or sensual. I mean, I think of what is it? This Qawwali music, right? Sufi Islamic music.
Yes.
The idea that in Sufi mysticism, God, the love between two humans who love each other is a reflection of love with God, so that it's not a sin for two people to make love, but in fact it's a beautiful it's a religious
celebration,
religious experience.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, you can see also in Stravinsky, like the Rite of Spring. It's very erotic.
That's true.
That's really erotic, and it's celebration of our sexuality and humanity in a way. And but that's interesting, because you're talking about Sufi music, and I've learned somewhere that in a history of music book, that in the root of Western and Eastern music, we conceive actually the music in a very different way. I mean, the music creating emotions in a way that, in Western culture, we create emotion by layering notes all together, what we call harmony. And which is very different in Eastern music. In a way, it's more horizontal. It's more about the monodic line and all the quarter tones, creating actually the emotions. That's actually why, it's deeply different since the beginning of our music history. And in a way, Eastern people would feel very maybe fascinated about Western music, but not creating the same emotion, and which is really different. They can be, for us also, like if you listen to Eastern music, you could be fascinated by that, but you won't cry in a way about this music. You won't be moved in a way. You would be fascinated, and you could see like around you maybe Eastern people really crying about a melodic line, because that creates emotions by playing within the line and using really micro frequencies, and just by creating expression by this. And the fact that actually we were talking about Messiaen welcoming all these Asian composers in the 90s, I think, not 90s actually, he died actually 92, so in the 80s or something, 70s and 80s, there's Tan Dun also went to study with Olivier Messiaen, and that was,
I didn't know that.
He was creating this.
So London, well-known Chinese classical.
Exactly, and he was then creating a mix of those two cultures, and which is fascinating, because now you can hear the mix of the Eastern and Western spirituality in a way, philosophy, ideas in through sound, and the way they built their language through that. It's quite incredible.
I guess, did Tan Dun write, I mean, if people wanted to listen to something, the first thing that comes to mind is, I think he wrote this soundtrack for Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Yes.
Right? And then that's played by Yo-Yo Ma, but then it's a
yes.
movie, but it's a very much, it's a Chinese movie, or maybe Hong Kong director, I'm not sure, but
yes.
But at the same time, it's a big blockbuster kind of stars here, and
and he's using actually the Chinese opera language in his music, which can even for us Western ears could sound also quite cheesy. It could be, but if you maybe listen to some Chinese opera street music, and then it makes sense also. It's quite it's interesting.
I mean, I'm half Chinese, but I've heard some Chinese opera, and my first reaction is to actually recoil. I mean, some of the they're singing very high, and it's like, oh,
But you grew up in the States, right?
I grew up.
And it's the same for me. I mean, I'm half Japanese, but the first time I went to a no theater in Paris, I remember I was a kid, I was a teenager, and there was some accompaniment music, traditional music for no theater. And the thing is, it sounded extremely modern in a way, because there was a lot of silence in the in between sound. It's like Celibidache also talking about phenomenology of what's happening in between sound is also a lot of emotions, and the way you relate those sounds together, or the matter if you take time in between two events, musical events, or you just rush into it. It creates tension, or also wider a wide feeling, and it's quite incredible the way that this traditional music could sound quite modern in a way that it uses our way to think in modern way, but in that time it was just obvious. And even the language, it's more like sound effects by the flute or traditional flute, or even the scales are not the same at all. It's quite interesting.
Yeah, that's right. A whole different scale. So, well, what do you listen to when if you're not listening to classical music, and what's
actually
you would put on?
Well,
or maybe not too much classical, or
well, the thing is, it's very strange, but I don't really listen to classical music. I mean, I'm doing so much classical music that beside this, I'm also like, since last year, I started to study musical production. So techno music, electronic music and everything. So for now, I'm listening a lot of, I'm finding that there's a lot of history also about this modern music, and so many styles, and, with their signatures, and even like a precise BPM, which is, this BPM is like drum and bass, or this is actually hip hop, or this is dance music, or deep house, or tech house, or acid house, and everything. So, and all of those languages are very different in a way, if you think about that. And it's more about texture, and sound design is actually playing with texture instead of, it's another way actually of thinking music. You play with sounds rather than real classical language.
Right, pitch, not pitch, sound maybe more than pitch.
Pitch, sound design, also you create some, I mean, separately it would sound like a noise, but the way you put them together also through time, it's also creating a language, and you're playing with colors and movements and textures, and yeah, it's quite fascinating also. I mean, it's a very different approach to music. And as a classical musician, I'm really learning a lot of things.
I'll admit, I don't listen to rap music, but it's, you hear it, and there's this incredible energy and vitality, and I know almost nothing about it, but even from my point of view, you can hear, or maybe I flatter myself, I can hear the difference between someone who's really good and someone who may not be so good. It's just not just a master music, but it can draw you in. And I think you might have sent me a link of some of your.
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
Maybe you could send me a link again, and we could tie that in below. So would this be acid?
Talking about rap, rap is a very general thing. You have grime, you have trap music, you have hip hop, trap. Yes, it's in like grime would be like more darker. Actually, it's about misery. It's about African American culture also in America, and you've got trap music, which is different. You've got so many things: hip hop, trip hop, R&B, which is more like pop music, actually R&B, and you have so many languages. So it depends also on on the culture of it. I mean, of what you're listening to.
Well, how does it translate? In fact, I mean, there is French rap. I've heard Italian rap before.
Yes.
But it seems like it's so dependent upon the sounds of English. Like there was someone sent me a link recently of an Italian singer. This was maybe 20 years ago or 30 years ago, but he sent me the link recently. I can't remember his name. I'll put a link there. And he grew up listening to Elvis and the Beatles and stuff like this. And he wrote this song where he's singing it's nonsense syllables. He's a very famous Italian pop singer.
It's scatting, right?
But it's all American symbols. So he's as if he's saying, and you hear this as a native American English speaker, I hear this and I'm like, I can understand everything he's saying, and I have no idea what he's saying at all because it's just nonsense, but it sounds like someone speaking American. And I wonder how how does it translate into
rap
French rap
also,
artists? Must be very different.
With this artist you're talking about, I guess it's quite interesting because rap in a way, I think, came from the jazz, scatting, I think it's called. When people are just speaking
Lily Holiday,
rhythm and something like
Armstrong.
that. And yes, so it's actually the same thing.
Or Ella Fitzgerald, actually.
It comes from that. It's everything is in relationship to each other, and in a way, it's a way of evolving from the jazz without recognizing it. I mean, you can't recognize jazz, but that's a way of using those kind of onomatopoeia. It's quite efficient also. It creates also emotions, and it's all about impulsion of every syllable, and it's nice.
So you don't listen to Quartet for the End of Time while you're cooking, for instance?
No, I don't think so. There's music actually you can listen to, but doing something else, but you can't with this language, which is so difficult already. Even if you pay attention to it, I mean, there's some music you can't listen to while doing anything else.
Right.
That's actually why you have to stop. You have to concentrate. You have to be with the music, actually.
Right. And some pieces, I imagine listening to Pierrot Lunaire while you're cooking, and you might cut one of your fingers off or something.
Yeah, it might be possible.
Oh, here another question. You've traveled all over the world for work and maybe for pleasure. What would you say is the most special place that you've ever traveled to, or what's one of the ones that comes to mind?
The only one for me, which made a deep impression on me, was Syria. Actually, I toured in Syria when it was possible. So it was 2004 or 5, something like this. So a long time ago. And I was going with a violinist, and we had to play solos and then duets. And we went to 4 cities I think Damascus, Aleppo, Sueda, and Homs, I think. So I've seen Syria when it wasn't destroyed yet. And
Sure,
it
Aleppo
was
is kind of
beautiful.
flattened, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't even want to see that because it's just sadness for me. And I remember the people were amazing. Very, in a way, I mean, if you know Japan, it's kind of the same way of treating, guests. They're extremely respectful, and it's about, if, and even if you try to say one or two Arabic words or something, then it would be your friend. And I remember also asking my way on the street with an old woman, and I tried, like 2 words in Arabic or something, and she said, "Come with me." She said, like, "Come with me, I will show you." And we went through all those little streets of Damascus, going to this, I can't remember what I was searching for, but it was, it was amazing actually to be with those people, and remembering also a few moments there. One moment, we had a driver driving us through the cities to our concert place, and he said, "Is that okay if I stop to see my cousin? He's living nearby, and it's just to see him and to say hello." And we said, "Yeah, no problem." So we stopped in a very small, kind of destroyed village. It was really sad and very poor, and there was this little tiny shop there, and the man was selling absolutely everything or anything. I mean, small things. And then we're talking together, and then he gave us also like small things and to thank us at the end. And we went back to the trip, and then we stopped again, and we've seen the driver buying some pizzas in the way, like someone was just near the road. And then he said, "That's for you guys to thank us also. Like, it's really nice, and thank you. I could see my cousin, and we ate together, and it was a very nice moment." But the most powerful moment was, I remember the end of the tour. The last day we had a free day, and it was beginning of Ramadan. So it was amazing because we went to this Omeyad mosque, and it was amazing because it's apparently the largest in Middle East. Beautiful, amazing piece of art. It's incredible. And we went to this incredible courtyard when you can see so many detailed architectures, details. And then the imams came, and they were holding hands in front of a wall, and they started singing. And that I realized it's the origin of flamenco singing. It's really the same kind of same expression when you hear those songs and the way they sing. And in the same time, I remember there was a lot of birds on the floor. And then suddenly when it started, all the birds went flying again. And there were birds all over the place, and they were like flying all over the place, and it was beautiful. It was amazing. Well, it was end of October, but it felt like July or something because it was so hot. And the blue sky, above you, and all those birds and the singing, and this place, that was amazing.
I guess North Africa is that the origin of flamenco? In fact, because Spain has been.
Yes, because of Spain history, also because of the Arabic presence through time in Spain a long time ago. And actually when in flamenco someone say ole, it's actually Allah. It's a translation of Allah. It's God. It's fascinating in a way, because it actually comes from this culture also. It's a mixing of cultures together. And then you had also this Roms coming through Europe and ending in Portugal with Fado, and Spain with flamenco, also putting their own influence. So it's a mix of things. It's it's quite fascinating.
Right, well, the lute, right, in
Yes.
Western Europe, the lute comes from the oud, right?
Yes.
You can say oud,
Oud, yes.
Yeah.
And it comes
It's
also
really,
from Turkey, you know, with ancient instruments and yeah, it comes from everywhere. In a way, one culture is it's nothing else than people meeting together. Also, I mean, you know, it's incredible. I mean, in Vienna, you can see also the Viennese culture is from all Europe. It's actually coming from all Europe, and also from the Roms coming and putting their own influence with Eastern music and Slavic music, and so on. So, yeah.
Interesting. You're talking about this hospitality, right? And also you mentioned Japan, and I remember years ago having a wonderful, beautiful example of hospitality there. I had an old book. It was actually the violist William Primrose's memoirs. And he mentioned this one street in Japan and this one bookstore in particular that had just a great classical collection. So when I was in Japan, this was 15, 20 years later, I looked up the bookstore, still existed, and I had a map. And a friend of mine had circled the location of the bookstore on the map. And I took the subway to wherever, I can't remember where it was in Tokyo. And I was just looking around and I just had no idea where I was. So I was looking at this map and this businessman, I mean, I was a student back then, but he was old, which means he was probably my age, right? It's, salary man, and suit and a tie. And I asked him, I said, do you know where this bookstore is? And he gave me this kind of very devilish smile, and he was like, oh, I know where this bookstore is. Come, I'll take you. I was like, that's right. You could just point me out. I was like, no, I'll take you. He's like, I know this bookstore very well. And he walked me, it was, a quarter mile. It was, 5, 6, 7 blocks. And he showed me, and he walked me up to the bookstore. And then it was this incredibly explicit pornographic bookstore. It's now become, I was looking for like old LPs of viola players, and then he was, so he said, here it is. He's like, enjoy, have a great time. I was like, oh, thank you.
That's great.
So, all right. So one last question. We're in quarantine. You're with your girlfriend and her family, but if you had to be locked down in quarantine with someone other than your girlfriend and your family, some historical figure, or even someone alive. I asked Yona this question, and I had mentioned, for myself, I had mentioned Obama.
Right.
And Yona was like, well, Michelle, right? But who's one of the people who springs to mind you have to spend a day with?
That's a very difficult question, because I would say all my friends, but also, I mean, I know for sure.
I don't know. I mean, Sorry? It could be someone you don't know, from the past.
Someone I don't know from the past. I would
say
Beethoven.
It's Obama for me, but
I would say Beethoven, even if it would be a pain in the ass. I think it would be amazing to learn a lot of things, and how to translate it also through music. And yes, that would be amazing.
That would be amazing. So it might be a long afternoon, but
yes, that would be very long, but very interesting. Very, really great. Yeah.
Okay, well, Seb, it's great to see you. It's really
nice to see you too.
And I look forward to, I guess we won't play till next summer then, but I'm certainly looking forward to that. So
me too. It's going to be great.
All right. Well, take care of yourself, okay?
Take care too.
All right. Bye.
See you soon.